Well, the deadline has passed, and the Astros are all in. Jason Briston here with former Major League scout Jeremy Booth, ready to talk Astros and what they've done. Zack Greinke reportedly coming to Houston. Joe Biagini, Aaron Sanchez from Toronto, Marty Maldonado. That is the one move that has been confirmed. Your instant reaction from what the Astros have just done?
Off the top, they did what they're supposed to do. They decided they were going to maximize this 2-year window with the players they have that can win a World Series, and they added to it. They, for now, did it in a big way. So you have to applaud what they decided to do today.
And what they've done is they've traded a number of their better or best prospects. We're talking Seth Beer, their first-round pick from last year.
Right.
They're talking J.B. Bukowski, their first-round pick from 17.
Right.
And Corbin Martin from the Houston area, who is currently injured, and Rojas, another decent bat, and that's the haul for Greinke. We're not sure quite yet. Biagini and Sanchez, although one of the names speculated on Twitter is that Derek Fisher's involved in that.
Well, for Fisher, he's a guy that's blocked. Mm-hmm. There's nowhere to play here. He's been in the big leagues. He's ready to move on. When it comes to a guy like Sanchez, that's a fit to acquire. Aaron Sanchez, where he's at now, where he's at in his career. Where he's going to be used here it remains to be seen. Probably has to try out in the rotation, but certainly fits in the bullpen long term. And when you have a Greinke type of guy, we've talked about it repeatedly. You're going to have to give up something to get something, right? And without a surplus of prospects in the system, to deal a guy like Seth Beer, who you drafted a year ago, to deal a guy like J.B. Bukowski, who you've been trumpeting for a long time, is going to be a guy, and a guy like Corbin Martin, who everybody believes in to have a role in the big league level. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And they did what they had to do. They were in a position where you have contracts in a club that's built to win now. You have players who are expecting to win now. You need to give your clubhouse a jolt. You need to address your pitching staff, and they did that. They absolutely did that.
Not trying to ignore you here. I'm trying to get our questions because we want to definitely get some questions from people here. Comments. Let's see here. Let's see. All right. Eric says the Astros killed it again. Prospects given away. Wasn't that big of a loss for Greinke. It's a situation where I don't know. You have mentioned that this system is not as deep as perhaps some people believe it is. I guess the good thing from the Astros' perspective is that they've kept Kyle Tucker, who is their top position prospect, and they've kept Forrest Whitley, their top pitching prospect. Do you think that they gave up too much for Zack Greinke?
I don't, and I think that if you're talking about winning now in this window, and if it wasn't Greinke, it could be Bumgarner, who ended up staying in San Francisco. You have to give something to get something. You can't just say, I'm going to give you X and you're going to give me A. Like, it has to be something to get something. So from a guy like Seth Beer, who's probably a DH, left-hand hitter, interesting moving to a National League club, but nonetheless, value there for a Diamondback club who's trying to look for tomorrow instead of today. J.B. Bukowski is a reliever. He's still in Double-A. He's been used as a starter. He is a reliever. And Corbin Martin's injured. And so you give up a starting pitching prospect who, whether you think he's a reliever or not in the end, which I do, he's still a starting pitching prospect. Give up a reliever with a big arm, and you give up a left-handed bat. It's 3 of the top 5 that the Astros have, and they had to do that because there wasn't anything behind that. So they did what they needed to do. It's not too much to give up. 2 of those guys are pretty replaceable. No offense to them, but you can find relievers and big arm guys, and you can find one tool type of bats in the draft again next year, and you can find them in your own system. So it's a good trade.
Amy Paul's checking in. She has a great question. I'm curious if Sanchez will be in bullpen or rotation.
That's an interesting one. I would think they're going to start him out in the rotation just because of the fatigue they've had. I wouldn't be surprised if quickly he goes to the bullpen, right? The Astros now have to be the AL favorite, so they have a little bit of room, not to play around, but to experiment with some of the guys they've just got in the system or the big league club. Sanchez is a reliever for me. He's had some health issues. He's had blister problems. He's had let's just say, not a very good season.
No, he's had a terrible season.
Yeah, to this point.
I'll say for you, he's had a terrible season.
Yeah. So
although he's been decent the past couple of outings, I think he struck out 10. And then I think he gave up 1 run 2 starts ago, but I may have those flip-flops.
Sure. Zack Greinke is not the same guy as he was before as well. And so what he does in the rotation, he's probably a 3 now, he's not a 1. He's probably a middle rotation starter, which is what they needed. Helps them in a short series for sure in the postseason, as they still have to be the favorite to not only get out of the West, but now potentially win the World Series again with the trades they've made today. So, for me, Sanchez starts in the rotation, goes to the pen, and a lot of that's predicated by who's around him.
Yeah, so Charlie Contreras saying, what trades did Houston, were the Astros able to complete? As of right now, and I don't think the Astros have made it official yet, but Marty Maldonado coming from the Cubs. Of course, he was the catcher last year. Yep. He comes over for Tony Kemp, Joe Biagini, and Aaron Sanchez, 2 pitchers from the Blue Jays. We believe Derek Fisher is involved in that deal. And then, of course, the big one for Zack Greinke, for Seth Beer, J.B. Bukowski, Corbin Martin, and Josh Rojas. Marty Maldonado is an interesting guy. Here's a guy who is one of the best defensive catchers in baseball, yet had an awful postseason for these Astros. He's a guy that clearly the Astros wanted, because Jeff Luhnow even admitted that we tried to pry him away from Kansas City.
Yep.
Is he going to be a guy that's just going to simply replace Chirinos late in the game, or will they kind of split the start, you think?
Both those guys need a compliment. Right, Maldonado's defensive-oriented guy and Chirino's offensive-oriented guy. So, neither one is a perfect everyday candidate. However, both of them can help, especially with the lineup around them. I would be surprised if Maldonado gets the majority of the starts going forward. He's been here before. He's going to know the pitchers. Not that Chirinos doesn't, but at being the better defender, it should give him more aptitude with the guys that are coming in now that he doesn't know, right? He's faced Greinke, so has Chirinos. They face Sanchez. I mean, they're going to understand them to a point, but Maldonado is somebody that they've been with before. To bring him back says how much they believed in him. Not sure why he got out of here in the first place. Have to ask that question at some point.
I think it might have had something to do with an agent, but that's allegedly.
Either way, he's back now, and he's going to be a good fit back in the clubhouse. So I would look for them to split time with Maldonado getting an edge.
Amy Paul, another good question. Will the Astros re-sign Gerrit Cole? Listen, it's way too early to think about that, but I think the industry believes that that's not going to happen.
I'll say this. Gerrit Cole is very clear. He said players play the game, and I'm paraphrasing, players play for the opportunity to become a free agent and pick their next destination, right? He's excited for that process. In my view, he's going to explore that. His agent is Scott Boras, and that's not somebody that signs early unless it's a long-term deal with a lot of money. So for me, he's going to be a free agent. With the payroll the Astros are taking on and what Gerrit Cole's plans are, you have to see where that fits in a year or at the end of this season and what that's going to mean for the window. But I think their window is right now. I think their window is right now.
Sure.
We've been saying that for a year. We said they need to get pitching help. They did that. The focus really has to be this, the 2019 season and 2020 right behind it, and we'll see what happens in 21.
Soto Javier, so we are aware Greinke is the 3rd starter. Could they move him to the 4? Because then you'd have Verlander, Cole, then you'd have the lefty, and then Greinke? Or do you think it's really going to matter?
I mean, I think that Zack Greinke isn't a secret, right? So it really matters. It doesn't matter when you pitch him as long as he's on his rotation time. He could slot in as the 5 and still be the 3. You just flip it, and now he's the 1, 2, and 3, ahead of Verlander and Cole in how that lays out. So a lot of it has to do with where he is in his rotation in Arizona, where he's going to slot in here, his workload. To me, you're setting guys up now for the postseason. Right? And so is he going to pitch game 3 or game 4? In a short season, is Greinke pitching game 3 or game 4? Because Cole is pitching 2 and Verlander's pitching game 1, right? So who do you want behind that? Miley? I'm not saying no. I'm saying for me it's Greinke, and I'm lining up my rotation with 2 months ago right now.
And it's something that we've discussed not only on Sports Extra, but on the Extra Bases podcast. Relievers, Jeremy has this saying, relievers are volatile. So when you look at how teams now use their starting pitchers to get another arm like a Zack Greinke, now you've actually acquired another weapon out of the bullpen, because if you look at some of the bigger games, not only that the Astros have played, but the Red Sox, who do they turn to late in the games to close them out? It's not always your relievers. It's been Charlie Morton for the Astros. It's been a Lance McCullers. The Red Sox turn to David Price. This, I imagine, also gives A.J. Hinch a little bit more flexibility, that he's got a seasoned guy to possibly use late in the game in a big playoff spot.
Well, managers become better managers with good players, and A.J. Hinch's job here has been more impressive, not with the talent that he's had and how he's done the X's and O's. It's been more impressive with how he's gotten the clubhouse to play together. I mean, these guys genuinely believe in each other. And bringing Maldonado back, obviously there's going to be some open arms for that, right? But giving him more flexibility gives him more weapons. It gives him more opportunity to do things late in the games for sure. The biggest need was in the rotation, though, and they addressed that.
Go Coast Guard Houston says, might as well give us the ring now, put a fork in the Yankees and Indians. I wouldn't go that far. I really like what the Indians did. I mean, the Indians had some major holes in their lineup. They get rid of Tyler Bauer.
Right.
And then they get a couple of big bats. They've got a back-end starter. So I think the Indians really put them in a position to challenge the Astros as well as the rest of the American League.
Again, the postseason is not about who the best club is. It's about who's playing the best at the time. And we've seen that time in and time out. You need pitching to compete, right? These games are not blowouts most of the time in the postseason. So I'm not counting anybody out yet. I think that the Astros have the weapons. They have to be the favorite today. So certainly in the American League, they had to be the favorite today. It doesn't mean that it's over. It doesn't mean it's been handled yet, and it doesn't mean that the games don't have to be played. So for me, look, there's reason to be excited. It's a jolt in the arm. It's the right move. This front office made the right move. I mean, they give up these prospects that said it last week. The prospects are suspects, so they do it in the big league. So give these prospects up right now and maximize your window. Unfortunately for the system, it means that the top tier finally was dipped into, and there isn't a whole lot left now. So maximize this window and be excited about it, and then be ready for what happens in a couple years.
Maggie wondering, safe to say we've seen the last of Stassi. Yes. Stassi, from what we've seen, is being traded to the Angels.
Right.
You're not going to get much back on that, right?
He's a third catcher. We talked about this, for the last couple of years as well. I mean, he's not the type of guy that you win a World Series with. And same thing with or at least playing every day. Same thing with Tony Kemp. He was here and helped out, and he was part of that deal for Maldonado to bring Maldonado here. Maldonado's a piece that can help you right now. Kemp's a guy that can help you if there's a need for a guy like that. So same thing with Stassi. With Chirinos and Maldonado on the roster, there's no playing time for him. It's not a guy you can send to AAA and push through waivers, so getting him a trade is the right move.
David writes, Astros rotation is now potentially the best in the league.
It's
Yankee fans are having a fit right now on social media.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the better ones. I mean, it's big moves. Now look, Greinke's going to leave Chase Field, and he's going to have to. And I was there. We had him in Milwaukee. He's a different guy now, he's going to have to leave Chase Field and come pitch here in Houston, which is a home run happy park. Okay. He's going to have to pitch. He's going to have to do what Keuchel did with below average stuff. And I'm not diminishing what Greinke is, but he's not 95, 97 anymore like he used to be. He's going to have to come really pitch here and keep the ball on the ground the best he can. He can do it. And it's the right move, but it's a different game than pitching in Chase Field where you make a mistake, fly balls can still get caught.
Ken Rosenthal, and this is interesting, and you're going to find this interesting because when we were talking about this Greinke deal, we were wondering what the return was for Arizona. And I said to Jeremy, I guarantee you that Arizona is sending some money to help pay for that contract. That's what Detroit did when the Astros acquired Justin Verlander. The Astros got a little money to help pay down that contract. Well, Ken Rosenthal now reporting that the Diamondbacks are sending $24 million to the Astros as part of this deal. Then Houston will assume the remaining $53 million.
Which makes sense because of the players that the Astros sent back, right? If the Astros don't send those players back, then they're going to bear that cost, and that makes sense. It's a fair deal.
Yeah.
Look, there's nothing you can say about this one other than it's a good deal for both sides with where the clubs are. You hope this works for the Astros because it was a move that cost them their 3 of their top 5, right? So you hope this works.
You haven't always, let me rephrase this. You have been critical at times of this front office, more so when it comes to drafting.
Correct.
But when it comes to trades, you have been you've been very complimentary.
Trades, waiver claims, free agency, the systems the Astros have in place work for this. This is good for this, right? I got to give them some credit for not posturing and saying, hey, we're better than we are in our system, and looking at what they had and addressing that appropriately. It's a very fair representation, and they should be pat on the back for looking at the club they got today, what it looks like in a couple of years, and assessing their system appropriately. Because quietly, while you don't hear this on Astros Twitter, quietly, they knew what they had. They were aware of what they had because the systems they have in place work in professional baseball. Outside Alex Bregman, which came from Brady Aiken and the failed 1-1, there's only been a couple of guys that they've got that have this type of impact. I'm still not sold on Seth Beer's impact. Matter of fact, one scout said to me today, I turned him in as a DH. What? I mean,
why is the National League team getting him
so, I mean,
when he's a DH?
That's kind of the, and again, reliever, but something they can plug into a long-term solution in Arizona in theory. And the Astros now that it's reboot. It's reboot and rebuild when it comes to the system entirely.
What else? Bill says Fisher for sure. Stassi and Fisher getting traded again. Right now, the Astros have not officially announced any of these deals. The only one they made official was Marty Maldonado for Tony Kemp. Greinke today, I think Greinke pitched today. Is that right, James? Can you look that up? I'm pretty sure Greinke pitched today. I think he pitched against New York.
That's right. Yes, he did.
So what was Greinke's line today against?
5 innings.
This was against the Yankees, right?
That's
No
right.
wonder they're upset.
5 innings,
7 strikeouts.
7 strikeouts,
2 earned runs.
2 earned runs.
In Arizona?
In New York.
In New York.
In New York.
Okay.
Well, get used to it,
Good.
right? 'Cause
No, that's good.
That's basically, you figure New York, Boston, those are where this path to the World Series will eventually lead Houston.
That's right. Who's pitching tonight for the Astros, by the way?
Let's see. It's
It's their third starter, right? So this is Greinke's day. That tells you where he slots in.
okay.
Okay, so if Greinke's pitching today against the Yankees, that's their same day the Astros 3 comes up. Look for him to replace that guy next time around.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. If it is Urquidy tonight? Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. So
That's his day.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how it fits.
That just fit in perfectly for this Astros
Sometimes
team.
it falls into place that way. There's no adjustment necessary. That's where he fits, and everybody else stays on track at 4 and 5.
Art says Astros filled the needs required to keep moving to the end of the season. Agree with that.
No doubt.
Stop with Bumgarner. May be a good pitcher. Okay, so a lot of people were saying Madison Bumgarner, that's the guy that the Astros should get. Madison Bumgarner stays. Given what you know now and what we thought, did the Astros make out better getting Zack Greinke, or is it a bit of a wash? It just depends on what you have sent back to San Francisco.
I think that it's about getting that third starter in their rotation, and I don't. For me, the name doesn't matter much as long as it's somebody that fills that role and can do it at a high level to help them get through a World Series. So, we talked on Extra Bases. We talked about Bumgarner, and you asked me, what would I do if I was the Giants, and I said I'd keep him. I'd keep him to energize the fan base. I'm in a pennant race, got to make a decision. We'll reevaluate this in the offseason. And that's what they did. They started telling teams, we're not getting this super high price for him right now. We're going to pull him back and keep him here. So if it's Bumgarner, if it was Greinke, if it was, pick somebody. It doesn't matter who you plug in. It's got to be the guy to plug in to help you get over the hump. Because the AL West, barring a gigantic catastrophe, is not an issue. It's not a concern. It's not something to think about. The next question is, what do you do in October? And this does that for them in October in a short season. So again, it doesn't matter, or short series. It doesn't matter who the name is. I think we got to kind of get off the name and understand the Astros address the need.
You've worked in Major League front offices. Can you give me a sense of what, say, officials in Boston or New York or Cleveland or Tampa are saying right now about the moves that the Astros have made?
Let me answer it this way.
Okay.
What I would say is that everybody's aware that the Astros did what they needed to do to get back what they needed to get back. And, a couple of execs have said automatically the AL favorite. Doesn't mean that they're going to win it. It just means automatically the AL favorite. I think the question has always been whether or not this front office would do that. Would they take the top 5 players that they had, the ones that everybody wanted something for, or would give them something back for, and deal that knowing what was in the system behind it? They've resoundingly answered that question. So now it's about, okay, we get it. Like, today is greater than tomorrow. Like, win now. Don't worry about the suspects. Like, let's do it today. Let's let teams who are rebuilding take those players back that you don't know what you really got yet, right? Martin blew out. We don't know what he's going to come back and do. He could be a reliever. Bukowski can be a reliever in Double-A. That's light years from the big leagues right now, right? That's light years. So we have prospects we can send away. You did what you needed to do, and so, go get them. And that's, in the other front offices now, it's about, look, there's no second trade deadline. This is it. We either have it or we don't, and it's time to go. And so I think that's what you're going to see.
All right. Well, I'm looking here. I don't see any other questions. Let's see here. Should the Astros pursue Bumgarner in the offseason?
Only if he fits the window. I mean, again, this window now is they're telling you.
Clearly, it's 2 years.
It's 2 years.
Right?
They're telling you Springer's up in 2 years, Verlander's up in 2 years. Greinke's up in 2 years, right? And Brantley's up in 2 years. I mean, Reddick's up in 2 years. The window is 2 years. That's what they're telling you. So the question becomes, what do you do for these 2 years? I don't think Bumgarner fits that window now because he's going to command, and rightfully so, a longer contract. Right now, you have your club. Greinke's going to be here for 2 years, especially with the money coming back. He's not going anywhere. Whether or not you sign him an extension, your priority is Gerrit Cole. Have to assume you're going to lose him, and then sign somebody else on a one-year deal, maybe 2 guys to fill that spot next year because you're not going to extend it with the other guys. I don't think Bumgarner's a fit now. This was your move.
Ron asks about Sanchez. Is he a starter? And you're saying...
I've always said he's been a reliever as well. I think guys like that deserve every chance to start. Where the club is today, maybe Brent Strom and company can figure something else out, change the scenery. Strom
has one of the best curveball rates, spin rates in. I mean, everything is spin rate, right?
Yeah,
so
but he's getting
both he and Biagini very high curveball spin rates, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but Sanchez is getting that ball turned around a little bit too, and so it really has to be.
Explain. What does that mean?
It means he's getting hit.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not spin rate. It's great. It's beautiful. Nice. Thanks. But where are the results? Are you getting outs? And where is he going to be most productive? He has to come here and get an opportunity in the rotation. He needs to get an opportunity, at least a start or two, to see what that's going to be. But ultimately, I think he settles in the bullpen.
All right. What do you think? Should we wrap this up? We got more content. Let's see. 4 prospects for a World Series win?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, right?
Maybe 2. Maybe 2, because this makes them contenders next year too. Now look, there's always stuff like regression, and there's never 2 years of the same, but it takes a lot of luck along with a lot of talent, right, to make this happen. But it makes you contenders now for 2 more years, instead of having to wondering what happens in your staff. Let's not forget, I mean, KHOU went to Atlanta on how long? 1 year deal. And wasn't $21 million like they said, but maybe it's going to be something where he comes back. Speculation. Bottom line is those type of guys is what you can add to it after the fact now. This team is not contending for 2 more years.
Well, you talk about World Series wins in exchange for prospects. How many people out there are upset about losing Daz Cameron, the catcher,
Jake
Rogers, and who was the pitcher there? What was his name?
World Series wins are so rare that when a team makes a move,
Verlander, no.
When a team makes a move to not be competitive and actually try to win in October, and I've been big on saying this for years. There's one thing about being competitive in October, and there's being built to win in October, right? This team has now added some pieces to be built to win in October. You have to just take that ride. If you end up with another World Series appearance, and maybe you get a title out of this thing in the next 2, you've had a pretty good 5-year run where the players that were left for this front office were maximized, whether that's traded or brought to the big leagues or moved on in multiple deals, players they got back. You've had an excellent job of guys in the system that they already had. They helped get to the big leagues from a development standpoint. And then you've got them addressing it, recognizing that system has gone the other direction. Whether or not Astros Twitter likes that or not, this was the right move. So they did that. Enjoy the World Series opportunity. They're rare, and see what happens.
Nikisha is looking for a recap, so we will recap. Zack Greinke from the Diamondbacks coming to the Astros reportedly for Seth Beard, JB Bukowski, Josh Rojas, and Corbin Martin. The Astros also getting Joe Biagini and Aaron Sanchez, 2 pitchers from the Blue Jays. We're not sure on what is going back there, although we believe Derek Fisher is a piece. And then earlier today, the Astros reacquiring Marty Maldonado, the catcher from the Cubs, and they are sending Tony Kemp, which makes a lot of sense because Kemp was out of options, and it appears that Max Stassi was on his way to the Angels. So Roberta says, love this update. I'm an SEC Bama alum, but baseball loves it. Let's see, what else? Ron is saying that the experts are saying, the 4-letter network is saying that it's unanimous. The Astros are the team to beat, and I got to believe that I'm with them. I mean, now.
They got to be the AL favorite, Jason. I mean, they have to be. Look.
Okay. can they beat the Dodgers with this team? I mean, the Dodgers right now are the class of the National League. They've been that way for most of the season. Can this team right now, Jeremy, beat the Dodgers?
Yeah.
I think it can.
Yeah, but you have to play the games, you know? And again, 2 years ago we thought they could win and they did, and last year we thought they were better and they didn't, right? So you still got to play the games. I mean, nothing's promised in this game. It can go one way or the other as fast as you can snap your fingers. So, but
Astros
now,
fans found that last year because they had a better club than the one that won the World Series.
Absolutely, but right now, on paper, this team can win the World Series again. Now it can do it.
And it's certainly good that the Astros acquired a couple of bullpen arms because of Ryan Presley.
Yep, retroactive, right?
Yeah, he's had some, I think, knee issues, right? It was knee. And he is, sorry, this made me laugh. Soto Javier says the Dodgers are on pace to lose a third World Series in a row. So sorry, I lost my train of thought on that one.
From LA, that cuts a little. But no, look at it this way, and we'll look at this again. Lance McCullers, he's going to come back next year, right? We don't know what's wrong with Forrest Whitley. Maybe he's ready to come back next year at the same time.
Forrest Whitley had a very good start last night. Now, granted, it's an A-ball for the Fayetteville Woodpeckers,
right.
but that was his best start of the year, actually. Now, granted, I know it's in Class A.
Yeah, you want to see different markers for him and hopefully hit those, but let's just assume those two guys are back on track. Well, I still think McCullers belongs in the bullpen and certainly should be eased back into it. If Whitley can contribute next year and McCullers can contribute with some kind of contingent of what they have, that's your 4 and 5 next year, right? It makes your bullpen better because guys in the rotation right now don't have to be there. It helps you out across the board. It keeps that window open.
I just want to show you this.
I said top 5, but that's all right. Astros Twitter is kind of ridiculous.
Jeremy took a lot of heat on Twitter because you said that the system, aside from the top 4 or 5 guys, was empty. And now people are saying, well, I thought someone said the Astros system was terrible and there was nothing of value outside of Whitley and Tucker. You did not say that.
That's not what I said, but that doesn't fit the narrative. So we'll go from there. What I did say is there was 5.
Yeah.
And they traded 3 of the 5. Now there's 2.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't mean there isn't anything in the system that won't be in the big leagues. It just means of impact to get something back. That's what happened. I also said more than once, twice, 7, 9, 14 times that you have to trade something good to get something good back. The Astros have resisted trading from the top 5 and always traded depth, right? Now they've done that. They've had to trade from the top 5, and so they got something back.
I'm trying to figure out from the Blue Jays' perspective what they are getting back in return here. Let's see what's being reported. I don't know if the Blue Jays have tweeted anything out.
I'm getting blown up right now. That's interesting. Good. More players.
At this point, I don't see. Now, it's funny. A lot of people are upset at what the Blue Jays have done here, but
well, why is that?
I don't know.
They're obviously in a rebuilding mode. Angels.
It looks like Stassi. I mean, Stassi. You had said Stassi was basically a backup catcher.
It's a third catcher.
Yeah. And that's how this is playing out.
What happens, right?
And listen, guys like Stassi and Tony Kemp, they were fan favorites. They're good dudes.
Right.
They're good dudes, and I can understand why the Astros fans are, especially in Kemp's situation, very disappointed that he's leaving.
Sure.
But
that's emotional, though.
It is emotional. But basically, when you're taking Miles Straw and moving him into that Tony Kemp role, you're talking about a guy that has an elite tool, speed. And what I liked was what you mentioned on our Extra Bases podcast that I didn't even think about is when you talk about a guy who's a super utility player, it usually comes down to one position.
Got to play short.
Tony Kemp doesn't do that.
He doesn't do that. Straw, the writing was on the wall the minute he started doing that. You actually brought that up to me. What do you think about Miles Straw playing short? And I said, well, and they're looking to see if he can be a super utility guy, right? And so that's what he is. You have to be able to do that. Ben Zobrist is the poster child for a super utility now, and that's what he did, was able to play short. Not every day. Helped out at third when he had to, second, the outfield, and first base even if he needed to, but he could play short.
Ben Reiter, of course, the gentleman who wrote Astro Ball, he tweeted out Alex Bregman had a 2-word reaction to the Astros deadline trade for Zack Greinke, and those 2 words, game time.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's good. The Astros should be excited. You know, I had a former GM tell me one time that when you make a trade like right now, the clubhouse is watching you too. It's not just about the fans and the coaches and the organization. The clubhouse is watching because you give them a shot in the arm. You know, it's a business. It's still a business, and everybody wants to win. So if you're able to go out and get pieces to help the club win, the players in uniform already know that.
And we saw that 2 years ago when Dallas Keuchel spoke up around the first trade deadline, saying how disappointed he was that the Astros had not made a deal.
Absolutely.
He spoke up, and from what I remember, Jeff Luhnow pulled him aside later and said, yeah, I get where you're coming from. And what did Jeff go out and do? Got Justin Verlander, and of course the rest of the story, it's already been written.
Sure, and again, they had to do this now, and the front office deserves all the credit in the world for making those moves today to help them maximize this window. Because it's not about right now, it's about next year too. Or not only about right now, it's about next year too. And we talked about this even a year ago. We said we were worried about, what was that buzzer thing? We said we was worried about not just right now, I was worried about the next couple of years and what they have in the system to help. They've addressed that. The Astros, if they stay healthy and they have the things go with them the way they can and go play baseball the way they're able to as a unit, have a chance to run off a couple more pretty good years.
Right now, it appears that was a 2-for-1 deal, unless we see something different. That it was Biagini and Sanchez
For Fisher?
For Fisher.
That's a lot. No, that's a lot.
But maybe I'm. So here's a good question. Someone's wondering, and we discussed it a little earlier, who will be the second catcher? You could see them splitting time, or it depends on the matchups and the team that you're playing. And
they're going to split time, but you know, with this lineup, you're going to want a better defender. Chirino's bat becomes a little bit less important right now, where the quality of the defense does with the pitching that they have on the staff. But that said, I mean, Maldonado can't go 0 for 50 and expect to play, right? So he's going to have to perform the way he does. My guess is Maldonado's brought here to play the majority of the time, with Chirino's coming in to help him. That's my guess.
Kathy says, will there be a new SP to add to the rotation? Yes. To recap, Zack Greinke from the Diamondbacks. Not the guy that he once was.
No, but he's a 3. He's going to help in the rotation. Yeah, I mean, look, pitching in Yankee Stadium isn't easy. And he's able to go ahead and get outs and perform there. It gives you an indication of what he can do. Whether or not he bottles it in this environment, you know, Zach's a different bird. Zach's a different bird. I mean, he was a little different in Kansas City, and he was different in Milwaukee.
But isn't he the type, though, that will really, I think he'll really embrace all the stuff that the Astros do that apparently has turned around Justin Verlander and turned Charlie Morton into the pitcher he is now. All this stuff, the computers, the analytics, all this stuff. To me, it seems like Zack Greinke would be the type of guy that's going to go. He's going to dive right into all that
Zach's
stuff.
unbelievably intelligent.
I mean, he was trying to help the Dodgers in their draft rooms, right? I believe that he was working the draft, helping with scouting.
He was. Zach's unbelievably intelligent. You know, there's a lot of different components to go into making a player. Verlander's had success with his changeup recently. It took a conversation with Nolan Ryan about that. It wasn't something that had to do with analytics. It was a conversation with somebody who'd done it, right? I guess what I'm getting at here is that Zach's going to dive in to everything they can give him, and he's got a smart enough approach to this thing where he can process that, use what he wants to use, discard what he doesn't want to use, and become better with it. I'm not worried about him in this environment, but he's still got to go pitch. That's what he's got to do. And so the help what he's doing right now in Yankee Stadium, what he's doing in Chase Field, even though it's a better hitter's park here, is why they brought him here. So we'll see what they add to it and go from there. But I think he's going to anchor that third spot pretty good.
James, can you pull up the splits on Greinke and see what how he pitches at Minute Maid? Okay. He probably doesn't have a tremendous history here.
No, not much.
But I'm just curious what
especially with the most recent time being in the National League, Dodgers and then these guys, right?
Yeah.
And the Brewers before that.
Yeah.
You had to stop in the middle anywhere? Was it Angels? It was Angels, right?
Yeah. Roberta says yes, he was helping with scouting. I see him going into coaching in the future when he's done playing. He's super smart. He is indeed. He is indeed. Zach is a different bird. That's a perfect way to say it.
No, he's a different bird. He was different in Milwaukee. He'll be different now, but he's very, very smart.
And for those who are a bit unfamiliar with Jeremy, although he's on our air constantly, Jeremy, former Major League scout with the Brewers, Twins, and Mariners. He's our KHOU 11 baseball analyst, and we also host a podcast, the Extra Bases podcast, and he appears regularly on Sports Extra as well.
I also quote tweet Astros future as much as possible.
So, you know, Jeremy has had a good point that fans certainly are emotional about what the Astros have.
Maybe a little bit.
And your whole point in being critical at times of some of the moves that they've made in the farm system, drafting, things like that, is that you're taking it from a different lens. You are talking to people within the industry, your friends, scouts, this and that, and it doesn't always align with the narrative that the fans have heard and believe, and they see the stats of these guys in AA and AAA.
You know, I also have my own eyes, and they've been trained over quite some time. And it's funny, I was talking to somebody the other day, and we talked about, you know, future and, you know, things that, I mean, it was an interesting conversation. What I said is, knowing everything means knowing you don't, okay? And there's all different kinds of ways to look at stuff. There's analytics, there's your eyes, there's press, there's media. Just because somebody says something doesn't mean it is, including me. I mean, like I said, I hope I'm wrong about those top 5 in the system. It just seems that with each passing day, that becomes more and more reinforced, which is why the Astros, once again, deserve credit for doing what they do well, and that's going for waiver claims and free agency and trades with what they have in the system. The best part about today was they correctly looked at their system, and they said, we've got X, Y, Z. We're going to move that to get back something before I have to pay everybody $30 million a year. That's what they did. That's a huge, huge, huge step forward for that front office and how they look at their players, and shows a lot of
foresight?
Yeah, consciousness and even some humility in what they've got there and what they haven't done well and what they have done well. So it's a day for me where I look at these guys and go, all right, good for you. It's exactly what you need to do. So the lenses are different. They're objective. They are not. If I was working for the Houston Astros, it would be, how am I assessing our organization? What are we doing well? What are we not? It's not, I'm emotionally tied up in this, and so everything the Astros do has to be the end-all, be-all. Nobody, it's baseball. Nobody does that. Everybody's got faults, and everybody's got wins and successes, and this club today won the day, and that's what you need to focus on right now, is they won the day for the next couple of years.
I think we'll end on that as we have to get ready for the news here in a few minutes. So again, the Astros making some big news and big moves, and we will be talking about it tonight at 4:30, at 6 and 10, and I think we might tape a podcast, so we've got a busy day ahead of us.
Okay, all right.
You're going to earn your money tonight,
I guess so.
my man.
Yeah, we'll be here.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into Facebook Live. For Jeremy, I'm Jason, and we will see you next time. Thanks.